Good morning, Asbury. Good morning. It's good to see you this morning. It's always great to be together after a week of doing a variety of things. We want to extend a special welcome to those who are visiting us, and hopefully you received a visitor's packet that looks a little bit like this. And in it's a blue sheet. And if you would take a few moments to complete that and either put it in the offering plates or in the basket out in the entryway, during the week, Pastor Chelsea and I will get a hold of you and try to answer questions and connect you with things that you're interested in. Also, if you have a prayer request for our prayer time later on this morning, the cards are in the front of the pew in front of you. And if you would fill those out and give them to me during the passing of the peace, or one of the ushers will make sure we include your prayer requests. We are glad you're here this morning, and as the acolytes get prepared to bring down the light of Christ, we invite you to prepare your hearts and minds to take a moment to clear out all the junk that's in there competing for a presence with God, and take a moment to center yourself, take a deep breath, and just focus on being here in worship and letting God's Spirit fill you.
The Gospel of Matthew ends with the passage I am about to read. The passage answers the question about what is needed for the world to encounter the message of Jesus. People to live it out or model God's message of loving others in their daily lives, whether at work, school, in their homes, churches, and neighborhoods. Hear now these words from the Gospel of Matthew. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always, to the end of the age."
Will you pray with me? O Holy One, as we come to the time to reflect on your word, we ask for you to open our hearts and minds to the leading of your Spirit, and that the meditations of our heart might be acceptable to you. Amen. I used to think that how I was called to reach out as a person who follows in the way of Jesus was to practice loving my neighbor, meaning neighbor close and neighbor far, and God and all that I did. And do things like listening, sharing meals, helping with kids, helping to solve problems, helping those out who were in a jam, sharing my resources with those who had less, and advocating for justice in unjust situations. In essence, being God's skin with love on in the world. In the past 5 to 10 years, I have learned that kind of reaching out is important, but it's not enough. I need to reach out in additional ways as well. I need to be able to share with others why I do these things, and then invite them to join a community, a faith community, our church, if they don't have one, so they too can learn more about God's love and have a community that supports, challenges, enables, and holds one accountable, so that they in turn can go out and witness in deed and word. In short, I need to witness to God's love by the things that I do and the things that I say, and to invite others to join me in being intentional about this. I believe this kind of holistic reaching out is what Jesus meant from this passage, that was read to us from Matthew when he sent the disciples and all who follow in later ages, meaning people like you and me, when he sent us out to go out and make disciples, to share, to do, to share, and to invite. I found this short video on YouTube, which I think illustrates the Great Commission, and so I want to invite you to watch it. It's tempting in any church community to focus on who is here. And while this is important, we're also called to focus on who isn't here. Like, think about our community, and who do we not have here this morning? I came across a preacher who used the image of a health club to describe the temptation that churches face when turning inward. Lutheran pastor Michael Foss writes, "I don't want to push this analogy too far, but for the sake of illustration, let's think of the membership model of the church as similar to the membership model of the health club or the gym. One becomes a member of a gym by paying dues. In church, you might consider this your weekly or monthly offering. And having paid their dues, the members expect the services of the club to be at their disposal. Exercise equipment, weight room, aerobics classes, the cycle class, indoor track maybe, swimming pool, all there for the members of the club. They also have trained staff which help them to use that equipment. Members may bring a guest on occasion, but only those who pay their dues have a right to the facilities and the attention of the staff." And he goes on and on. I don't think we need to belabor the point. Many who sit in the pews on Sunday have come to think of church membership in ways analogous to how the fitness crowd views membership in their club. I'm not saying everyone, I'm just saying some people. Foss argues that this understanding has misplaced the true purpose of church and distorted its nature. The point of the church is not membership. The church does not have clients, does not have members in the sense of joining a club, does not have consumers, and are not consumers of goods and services. The point of the church is discipleship. The church exists to form and sustain individuals and a people who are following in the way of Jesus. So rather than buying into a consumer model of the church where the customer is king, the church simply meets customers' needs. The church does more. The church redefines our true needs. The church transforms people according to the life and the pattern revealed in the way of Jesus. It unites them with others who are committed to this way of life. But perhaps because we have become accustomed to thinking of ourselves as consumers of various goods and services, because that's what we hear all the time on TV and radio, and when you go on the internet, you get all those ads that are trying to get you to buy stuff. We sometimes bring the consumer mentality into church. The church is for me and my family, some of us think. It's supposed to meet my needs, and yes, that is one aspect of our life together. But sometimes we confuse needs with desires. And it isn't the job of the church to meet our desires unless they are in line with what it means to follow in the way of Jesus. We are not here to consume Jesus. We are here to share what we received in this community from God with others who have never experienced it. So we may enter the church as consumers, but ultimately God puts you on the staff of the church. As staff, we are expected to work, and the job description is the Great Commission. Do, share, invite, love, liberate, lead, and launch. Pick your verb, go out and do it. Yes, congregational leaders need to take seriously the experience of congregational members. But the church is not driven simply by people's needs and wants. It is driven by God's dreams and purposes for God's world. We find power when we live out that purpose. God does not send us out empty-handed. So let's take a moment to look at the Great Commission and how we are to do, to share, invite, liberate, lead, and launch. Go, therefore. The Greek translates action into authority with that phrase, go, therefore. So can we point to specific places in our life where our faith is being put into action? And maybe a way to think about that is, when is the last time that your faith in following in the way of Jesus made you a little bit uncomfortable with what's going on around you in the rest of your life, and you felt compelled to say or do something? That's probably you acting on your faith. Phrase 2 of the Great Commission, make disciples. We are to be ever in the pursuit of training people to follow in the way of Jesus. But while we do that, we're also called to respect those of other religions. So we're really called to include and reach out to those people who don't have a faith commitment. And so we might ask ourselves, how are our spouses following Jesus more purposely because of us? How are our children following Jesus more purposely because of us? We might ask the same question about our extended family, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, and even the barista at Starbucks if they don't have a faith community. And then phrase 3 is of all nations. Jesus' purpose is to extend the gospel to every tribe, language, people, and nation. Therefore, the followers of Jesus cross those same lines into unknown territory, again remembering that we're called to respect and treat with kindness those of different faiths. And our phrase 4 is baptizing them. Dipped or sprinkled, adults, children, youth, infants, baptism communicates belonging. No program can make a church warm and welcoming to the unchurched. Only people can do that. Only we can do that. How are we making our church a place of becoming, a place of welcoming, a place of belonging? How do we do it so that's not just an isolated event at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, but all week long? And phrase 5 is teaching them. We cannot be removed from teaching our faith to others. Now, if one's spiritual gifts do not include mercy and giving, we are not excused from trying to develop those aspects when we follow in the way of Jesus. And the same holds true for teaching. You might not be called to be a Sunday school teacher or a Bible study teacher or a small group leader. But one does not have to know everything to teach, only something that the taught do not yet know. Unless each generation takes on the task of explaining and living out the faith for the next generation, following in the way of Jesus will not be passed on to each succeeding generation. The Great Commission requires us to commission one another. And so by the power vested in me as one of your pastors, I want to ask these questions about the Great Commission, and I hope you'll respond with, I will, with the help of God. So will you go and do and share and invite so that those who do not know the love of God will experience it? If you will, please say, I will, with the help of God. Next time, sound like you really mean it. Will you liberate, launch, lead in the teachings of Jesus so that others may follow in his way?
I will, with the help of God.
You sound like you mean it. So be it. Amen.